So Adrian Wojnarowski reports that the Boston Celtics are a serious threat to potentially acquire Kevin Durant, that they're willing to include Jaylen Brown. Now, the report comes with a couple of big caveats. First of all, Brian Windhorst reported on ESPN that this is kind of old news that's been out for about a month almost, that this particular offer was already on the table. Essentially, Jaylen Brown, I believe it's Grant Williams as well, possibly some other filler. And then I believe it's the 2025 first, the 2027 first, the 2029 first, pick swap in 2026, another swap in 2028. So it's a pretty significant offer. Nets want more. You know how that all goes. But apparently this offer's been around, according to Brian Windhorst. And then Adrian Wojnarowski in the piece also specifically stated that the Celtics were, quote-unquote, no closer to obtaining Kevin Durant than any of the other teams. So I'm not really sure what to make of this particular report, the timing of it, what exactly the goal is. It could just be ESPN trying to spice things up in the middle of the summer. But I do want to talk about this particular deal because it's an interesting one that I recommended a while back, and one that I think is a smart move for Boston. As we looked at Boston last year, I actually thought they were the most talented team in the finals. They were just incredibly undisciplined, and they struggled particularly with ball handling and offensive decision-making. So the idea of flipping Jaylen Brown and Grant Williams and maybe a Daniel Tice or something along those lines for Kevin freaking Durant instantaneously makes you by far the best team in the league, in my opinion, the title favorite, the team that I would pick to win the championship this year. So if I was running the Celtics, I would do it. I understand the hesitation. I understand the idea with the draft picks. I understand Kevin Durant's injury history, although I think some of the injury history stuff with Kevin Durant is overblown. He takes his sweet time coming back from injuries, which he should. He's Kevin Durant, and he understands the long run with the playoffs, but he's been available for each of the last two playoff runs. Played extraordinarily well 2 years ago, then struggled against the Boston Celtics last year in a series where his entire team was completely overmatched, right? But I think the injury stuff is just overplayed with Kevin Durant. I think it's a no-brainer. I think the Celtics should do it, but I understand the hesitation. This is where it comes down into the classic debate over pushing your chips in the middle versus playing the long game. We had this as a question in the mailbag, and like I told you guys, I don't think anybody's right or wrong. It's just a matter of preference. I think because of the current structure of the CBA, it's better to push your chips in. Players are fickle. They get a wandering eye. They get sick of their situation. They get authority fatigue. They want something new. And so more often than not, they don't want to stay in a place for 7 to 10 to 15 years, right? You know, when we look at the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green type of pairing, yes, it's organizational excellence. Yes, the Warriors make it easy to stay, but it's also a matter of loyalty. Because I've seen teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder in the early 2000s where it's like you've got Kevin Durant, you've got James Harden, you've got Russell Westbrook, you've got good veteran players, you've got a good coach, everything's right, but the guys they just want to leave. Kevin Durant, hey, I want to leave. James Harden, I want a bigger role. I'm ready to leave, right? So at the end of the day, I think it's a little bit harder than people think to get people to stay. So under the current CBA, because of how easy it is for player movement to occur, and because of the fact that players don't really feel a ton of loyalty, I'm a believer in pushing your chips in. If you stick with Jaylen Brown, there's no guarantee that sometime over the next 2 years that he won't look at the situation with Jason Tatum and be like, nah, I'd rather be somewhere else where I have a bigger role. Or, man, I'd rather play with somebody who's a little bit more of a playmaker, who's a little bit more of someone who sets me up, right? There's no guarantee that there's going to be loyalty there. That's why I'm a believer, under the current system, push your chips in the middle. Go after the Kevin Durants of the world, make a run to the title, read your situation, like with the Brooklyn Nets. If you don't think you have enough, sell the farm and restart, right? Now, if they go renegotiate the CBA and they make it more difficult for players to leave and they heavily incentivize players to stay, that's where the strategy might shift, where player movement limits, and now it becomes more about scouting and player development and building continuity and doing the things that the Warriors do. But the Warriors are the exception to the rule. Don't let them fool you into thinking that that's easy to do. It is not easy to do. All right, the last thing I wanted to hit on this KD story is the Kyrie report that came out from Shams Charania saying that he has made it clear to the Nets front office that he intends to play out the season with Brooklyn with or without Kevin Durant. Now, first of all, just like after the season when Kyrie said, hey, I'm doing this as a partnership with Sean Marks and Joe Tsai and Kevin. No. That's not really the case. He doesn't understand that that's not his decision. Whether or not Kyrie plays basketball for the Nets is entirely up to Brooklyn, and they don't want him unless Kevin Durant reinvests in the franchise, in which case they understand he's better than the alternative, right? But if they reset, if KD is leaving, which I believe he is, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute, there's no universe in which they keep Kyrie. They will flip him for a first-round pick, probably to the LA Lakers. That's just smoke and mirrors. That's just Kyrie. I think what Kyrie's really trying to accomplish there is demonstrate a willingness to play basketball, because he understands that's his biggest red flag surrounding him right now. He knows it hurt him in his extension conversations this summer, and he probably wants a lengthy deal after this year. So he's probably going to do a lot to try to rehab his image over the course of this next season to, kind of make people believe that he's committed again so that he can get a long-term deal. That's what I think this is about. Now, is KD coming back? I don't think so. You're going to see threats. You're going to see Brooklyn say things like, we're going to take them to camp. We've talked about this before. Training camp is your best opportunity to set a tone for the season. You never want to bring a malcontent into training camp. You never want to bring someone who's not committed into training camp. In this particular circumstance, Kevin Durant wants out. If you bring him back, all that's going to do is cause your 2022-2023 season to get off to a really ugly start with lots of infighting and passive aggressiveness and things that are going to hurt a basketball team. Now, remember, one of the big reasons why Sean Marks and Joe Tsai want to get out of this relationship is they don't like having KD and Kyrie in control. They don't like the kind of like this like, entrepreneur, businessman type of approach to the way that these players are running the Nets. They want to be in control. They want to run it like a basketball team. They want commitment. They want buy-in. They don't want drama. They don't want to deal with that like diva type of personality from those two guys, right? So they don't want to, they want to reset. They want to build a new culture moving forward. So chances are this is all a leverage play, and they're looking to raise KD's value to some extent. I don't think you're going to get much more than the offers that they've seen. A Jaylen Brown with 3 firsts and 2 swaps is probably the best that you can do in this situation. And my guess is at some point over the next couple of months, the Nets will relent and they will make that deal. Again, like I've said several times, the one thing that can turn this into KD returning to the Nets is Kevin Durant himself. If he gets a change of heart and realizes that he doesn't actually want to leave and that he wants to stay in Brooklyn and play with Kyrie and all those things, then yes, I believe they would bring them back to camp, but I don't think that's going to happen. And KD has leaked once again, I think he leaked it to Jake Fisher about a week and a half ago, that he's still very intent on getting traded. So not sure what to make of this Woj report. I do think Boston is a legitimate threat. I love the deal for them. I think they should do it. But it, again, like Brian Wintour said, it's an old report. And like Adrian Wojnarowski said, they're no closer to obtaining KD than everybody else. So this is probably just more summer drama. But I do think Boston's a great example of the type of team that should make this type of deal, because it's pushing all the chips in the middle and gives you a very, very good chance to win the title.